Hello again, everybody. This video is going to be about getting my driver license and learning how to drive. I'm going to try to keep it short. I know sometimes I can ramble on, but back in 1983, I was 19 years old and I was stationed on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. Well, I got 2 weeks approved leave. In military vacation is called leave, annual leave. Well, I went to Iowa. I'm originally from Iowa. I was born in Iowa and lived there until I think I was like 6, 7 years old. But I still had relatives up there, and I was on leave and I was staying with my grandparents up in Ryan, Iowa, small town. I think back then population was only like, at the most 340. I'd be surprised if it was any more than that. But real small town. And I told my uncle that I was wanting to learn how to drive and get my learner's permit. Well, was the he was the town maintenance guy, um, and Uncle Mooney wanted me to help him move some equipment from or right down the street from the town maintenance garage, I guess, or maintenance shed. Actually, the building was a old 1800s uh, Ryan fire station, and I don't even know that building is still there or not. But anyway, he told me to get on the forklift. He was going to follow me in the dump truck up to the town maintenance shed or garage. And I was nervous as hell. I had never driven anything, and especially a forklift. To be honest with you, I was scared to death of it. And he said, well, he showed me the controls. Said that you do this to make turn left. It was one of them that you turn like this. Okay, so I could not stop grinning. I had never driven anything in my life that didn't eat grass. Well, um, I know he must have thought I was a dumbass because I could not get that grin off my face. And so he was following me in the dump truck up to the garage, was maybe 100, 100 yards, maybe. It wasn't that much, but I was all over that little street there in Ryan where we was on. And finally got it up there without any scratch or dents or anything. So I felt the great sense of accomplishment with being able to do that. Well, he d- during that 2 weeks that I was on leave, he started letting me ride with him and Aunt Judy. Not Aunt Judy, Aunt Nancy. Aunt Nancy was his wife, and um, and you know how when you first start learning how to drive, you oversteer, overcorrect. Man, I was jerking back and forth trying to keep it in lane. And he said, just relax. He said, you don't need to put that much turn in the steering wheel to keep it in the lane. Just make slow, gradual turns because you're oversteering. And it took me a few times of driving, with him before I learned how to keep it in the lane without giving everybody whiplash back and forth. Um, and we drove to Marion, Iowa, um, Anamosa, Iowa, and Manchester, Iowa. With me driving and him, teaching me how to drive. Well, my cousin Doug, my aunt Judy's um, youngest son, he drove me up to Marion to the Division of Motor Vehicles for my learner's permit or beginner's permit, and I was nervous because taking a test and stuff like that. And man, we went in there. I took the written test back in the old days. Where you handwrite your test. But I passed. And they gave me my beginner's permit for the state of Iowa. And we're driving back to Ryan or Coggin or wherever we was going. And I was looking at the license. He's driving, but I'm looking at the license, and it said Iowa State driver's license. I said, Doug, I think this is a real driver's license. He said, No, no, it ain't. You only took a written test. You didn't take a road test. That's just a learner's permit or beginner's permit. I forget what Iowa calls it. He said, turn around, look on the back. So I turned around, looked at the bottom of the license, and it said beginner permit only. I said, oh, okay. Well, When I went back to Norfolk, I took that beginner's permit and I bought a car. I bought a 1981 Mercury Lynx. And the Mercury Lynx is the same exact car as a Ford Escort. The only difference is the grill. One says Ford, one says Mercury. And I didn't even know if there was a hood ornament or not. But I look here. I was big time on the ship because I had a car. I'm surprised they even let me buy a car back then with just a learner's permit. I didn't tell them it was a learner's permit. I just used that as my identification along with my military ID. First car payment was $67. Well, them days are gone. I like a dummy. I bought this Mercury Lynx with a 5-speed manual transmission. Never drove a manual. I just learned basically almost learning how to drive. And I say almost because I bought this car and I was everybody's friend in my division, the Signalmen, because I had a car. And if you had a car, you were something because that meant you could take friends, to the mall and go to Burger King and stuff like that without having to take the city bus up there in Norfolk. Well, guess what? I was stalling that car right and left. I uh, I remember one time I was turning left, but as soon as my light turned green, John Sloan starts turning left, oblivious to the cars coming straight ahead that had the right of way. And my friend said, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You gotta let them go first." And I said, "Well, I got a green light." They said, "No, if you got a green light, you got to wait for the oncoming traffic to go through. You have to yield to them. The only time that you can go first is if you have a green arrow." So it's a wonder. It's a wonder we didn't wreck up there. And I remember still trying to learn how to drive that 5-speed manual transmission. The ship was actually, it was home port in Norfolk, but we were actually in Portsmouth Naval Shipyard for like six months or so. Getting repairs done. It's a standard thing. And you had to go through the tunnel to go from Norfolk to Portsmouth. You had to go through the Portsmouth Tunnel. I think it went underneath the Elizabeth River. And back in the days when you stop and either throw a dime in the coin collector or give the attendant a dime, well, I would come to a stop and then I'd pay. I would stall trying to get it started. I just didn't have the freaking knack of not stalling it yet. It was about 3 days of driving friends. Nobody wanted to ride with me, and I don't blame them. But anyway, I was getting better and better, and I was getting to the point where I wasn't stalling near as often as I did. And I went to the DMV in Virginia to get my driver license, and I thought that I was probably had a very good chance of passing that road test, the actual driving test with the examiner. Well, I went to the DMV and I gave them my Iowa State driver license. That's what it said on the front. And the girl at the desk said, "Well, you're going to have to take a written test." I said, "Oh, okay." Well, I took the written test and I passed. She said, "Okay, go down there to the end of the counter and they're going to take your picture." And I'm thinking, is luck going to be in my favor? Am I going to get a driver's license without taking a road test? I keep my fingers crossed. I went there, I went down there and they took my picture. They called me Mr. Sloan. I went, got my driver's license. It was a driver's license. And I just could not believe I actually got a driver's license without ever having to take a driver's road test with the DMV road, examiner or whatever. And but anyway, I just thought that I would share that with you. It's not a great story, but it's just something. All right, we'll see you next time.